Hi, everyone. Welcome. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm ready to give a class, share some insights based on a verse in the Bhagavad Gita. So we will start with the invocation prayer, and you can repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So today I'm going to read from chapter 14, text 10. This chapter is about the three modes of material nature, and that is what we will talk about today in the class. So text 10, I will read the Sanskrit words individually. You can, if anyone can respond to me, and then we'll go through the verse, the whole thing. Raja,
Raja,
Tama,
Tama,
Cha,
Cha,
Abhibuya,
Abhibuya,
Sattvam,
Tattvam,
Bhavati,
Bhavati,
Bharata,
Bharata,
Raja,
Raja,
Sattvam,
Sadvam, Tama,
Cha,
Cha,
Eva,
Eva,
Tama,
Tama, Sattvam,
Raja,
Raja, Tata,
Rajas, Tamas, Chabhibuya,
Rajatamascha Bibhuya,
Sattvam, Bhavati, Bharata,
Tattvam Bhavati Bharata,
Rajasattvam, Tamaschaiva,
Rajasattvam Tamaschaiva,
Tamasattvam, Rajastata,
Tamasattvam Rajastata,
Rajastamascha Vibhuya,
Rajastamascha Bibhuya,
Sattvam Bhavati Bharata,
Sattvam Bhavati Bharata,
Rajasattvam Tamaschaiva,
Rajasattvam Tamaschaiva,
Tamasattvam Rajastata,
Tamasattva Rajastata,
Rajastamascha Vibhuya,
Rajastamascha Bibhuya,
Sattvam Bhavati Bharata,
Sattvam Bhavati Bharata,
Rajasattvam Tamaschaiva,
Rajasattvam Tamaschaiva,
Tamasattvam Rajastata,
Tamasattvam Rajastata, Rajatamascha Vibhuya,
Rajastamascha Vibhuya,
Sattvam Bhavati Bharata,
Sattvam Bhavati Bharata,
Rajasattvam Tamaschaiva,
Rajasattvam Tamaschaiva,
Tamasattvam Rajastata,
Tamasattvam Rajastata. Would anyone else like to recite the verse? Chapter 14, text 10. Okay, we will now look at the word for word, what each word means. Raja, you can repeat after me.
Raja,
Thank you. Mode of passion.
mode of passion.
Tama,
Tama,
mode of ignorance.
mode of ignorance.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Abhibuya,
Abhibuya,
also surpassing.
also surpassing.
Sattvam,
Sattvam,
mode of goodness.
mode of goodness.
Bhavati,
Bhavati,
becomes prominent.
become prominence.
Bharata,
Bharata,
O son of Bharata.
O son of Bharata.
Raja,
Raja,
mode of passion.
mode of passion.
Sattvam,
Sattvam,
mode of goodness.
mode of goodness.
Tama,
Tama,
mode of ignorance.
mode of ignorance.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Eva,
Eva,
like that.
like that.
Tama,
Tama,
mode of ignorance.
mode of ignorance.
Sattvam,
Sattvam,
mode of goodness.
mode of goodness.
Raja,
Raja,
mode of passion.
mode of passion.
Tata,
Tata,
as in this.
as in this.
Translation. Sometimes the mode of passion becomes prominent, defeating the mode of goodness, O son of Bharata. And sometimes the mode of goodness defeats passion, and at other times the mode of ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When the mode of passion is prominent, the modes of goodness and ignorance are defeated. When the mode of goodness is prominent, passion and ignorance are defeated. And when the mode of ignorance is prominent, passion and goodness are defeated. This competition is always going on. Therefore, one who is actually intent on advancing in Krishna consciousness has to transcend these three modes. The prominence of some certain mode of nature is manifested in one's dealings, in his activities, in eating, etc. All this will be explained in later chapters. But if one wants, he can develop by practice the mode of goodness and thus defeat the modes of ignorance and passion. One can similarly develop the mode of passion and defeat goodness and ignorance. Or one can develop the mode of ignorance and defeat goodness and passion. Although there are these three modes of material nature, if one is determined, he can be blessed by the mode of goodness, and by transcending the mode of goodness, he can be situated in pure goodness, which is called the Vasudeva state, a state in which one can understand the science of God. By the manifestation of particular activities, it can be understood in what mode of nature one is situated. Om Manjana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Itam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharina Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtata Desha Tarana. So chapter 14, text 10 reads, sometimes the mode of passion becomes prominent, defeating the mode of goodness, O son of Bharata. And sometimes the mode of goodness defeats passion, and at other times the mode of ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy. Thank you all for joining me. I'm excited to talk about the three modes of material nature. And so let's take a look at some of the basics first. So the three modes of material nature are the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. And there's a whole chapter dedicated to describing what the modes of nature are, the modes of material nature. And I actually, today I took all the verses, and so my notes are really big and you guys are small, so I'm gonna see if I can make my notes smaller on my page and see you better. So today I copied all of the verses in the whole chapter without the purports, and just to see what is covered in the chapter, because I wondered like what is important to say, and then I sort of like analyzed it by categories. The whole chapter discusses the qualities of the modes, the results of the modes, what it looks like when someone is conditioned, the competition of the modes, what happens when you die, and when you leave your body, depending on what mode of material nature you're in, your consciousness is in, and where you go after leaving the body, like basically what's the trajectory of someone who keeps cultivating goodness or passion or ignorance. And then there's this really cool couple of verses about what it looks like to be transcendental to all of the material modes of nature. And so I'm not going to share all the verses, but I'm going to share with you today what I learned and what I've been learning for a few years. And so the mode of goodness is enlightening, it's illuminating, it's purifying, and we can cultivate knowledge easily in the mode of goodness. We can cultivate more satisfaction and peace and empowerment when we are in the mode of goodness. And the three modes are a way of categorizing material nature, a way of understanding what's going on in our consciousness and in the world. I mean, everything in the material world can be categorized by one of the three modes. And there are, and there is a fourth mode, which we will get to later in the talk. But there's only three modes in material nature, and then there's a fourth mode, a fourth consciousness that you can cultivate, which is like purely spiritual. And I won't say anything more about that. But so the mode of goodness is like the ideal state that we can place ourselves into. We can cultivate a consciousness of goodness, which is it's steady and it's aligned with our higher nature. It's not really creating like the least amount of harm and disturbance to the world and to ourselves. And it's funny because I don't actually have a lot of notes about describing the modes of nature, but I do have the verses in this chapter on my notes. But so what do I want to say about the mode of goodness? It's a way of being that can create more like positivity and peace in your life. And it's naturally like assertive, where you take care of your duties and your relationships, and you're also taking care of yourself. It's taking a stand for your values and the nature of the soul, and so it's a way of being that's balanced and pleasant. And maybe there's more to say on that, but I'll just share a little more about the other two modes, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance. So the mode of passion is there's like more energy in that mode, and maybe less time. When we're in the mode of passion, we're like, we're active. We're, in some ways, we could be forcing some sort of goal in life. It could be like somewhat aggressive. It could be really busy. It could look very energetic. And so just to pause there and say that our consciousness is a mix of all the modes. Maybe in some areas of life, there's mostly goodness with a mix of passion. In some areas of life, there's quite a bit of ignorance, but a little bit of passion. So like, it's very mixed, the way that we show up in the world, and our consciousness can be very mixed. And so you can start to see, by understanding the qualities and what the results are, if you're in a different mode, and you can see results in your life, and you can see the actions in your life, and the way you think, the way you feel, the way you act, and then the results of how how your life is going. And you can sort of start to, like, once you have this knowledge about the modes of material nature, we can be aware and make adjustments. So it's a really great check-in tool. It's a great tool for checking in with yourself. What's the energy going on in these areas of my life, and how am I approaching it, and what is it looking like? So the mode of passion is, there's some attachment to like results. We're wanting something to happen, and we're kind of pushing to make this thing happen. And there can be even anger, and the very controlling energy with the mode of passion. Like, it's going to be like this, and it's going to be like that, and so it can cause harm. And there's some karma that comes with with each of the modes. There's sort of results that can come, maybe good or bad karma, but still whether we're in any of the modes, there's still like consequences for behaving in such a way. So the mode of passion is, I think I will share some from the verses that I copied. That's at the bottom of I have some notes here. I'm going to share from some of the verses in chapter 10. So the mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings. And because of this, one is bound to material fruitive activities. So when you're in the mode of passion, you're almost like tied up by a rope. It's a rope. The three modes of material nature, the Sanskrit word for the modes of material nature, there's one word for it, and it's guna, which means rope. So when we are caught in this, in one of the modes, like for example, passion, it's like we're bound to it because we're acting in that way. We want our result. And so it says we're bound to material fruitive activities. This is text 7. So fruitive activities means like aiming for what you want, like aiming for some result in life. And so and then the mode of ignorance, I'll read some here. It says that it causes delusion. And this is from text 8. O son of Bharata, the mode of ignorance causes delusion, the delusion of all living entities. The result of this mode is madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. And so mode of ignorance is you're ignoring, avoiding, sleeping, not very active, not going for it. You're not going for it for the goal, like the mode of passion. The mode of ignorance is like, I don't want to deal with it, or I wish it would just happen without me having to do anything, or, the mode of ignorance can, create quite a bit of like foolish activity, people using intoxicants. That is like a way to go deeper into illusion, because you're like covered by this thing that's affecting how you can even think. You can't even think very clearly when we're intoxicated. And there's all kinds of, you could scrolling on this is my opinion, but scrolling for 2 hours every night on your phone or whatever, to me, that's the mode of ignorance. You're avoiding a duty. I mean, maybe there's some research to be done, but I'm talking about like escaping on screens. This is like ignoring your duty, your service, your schedule, your rhythm, your health, what you need to tend to. Not just you. This is me talking to myself as well. So that's an example of just a couple examples of living in the mode of ignorance. And so these three modes of material nature, so it's very liberating and empowering to have this knowledge to, like in the beginning of the chapter, Krishna says, so Krishna and Arjuna are speaking to each other, and they're on a battlefield, and Krishna sharing with Arjuna many universal universal spiritual like insights, truths. And anyway, so at the beginning of this chapter, Krishna says, again, I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained to supreme perfection. And I'll just read the next one. Krishna continues, he says, by becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature, which is like my own nature. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. So this is like, he says it's the best of all knowledge. And I'm sure he may be speaking about not the knowledge he's been speaking about in previously in chapter 13. Like, this is just one conversation. At the same time, we can take a look at how these chapters were organized by Srila Prabhupada. And you could also look at it going forward that like, this is the best of all knowledge. Like, and it may very well be that by understanding the modes of material nature very concretely, like being able to spot mode of goodness, passion, ignorance, and like catching ourselves and noticing the effects of like, when I'm conditioned in this way and I act in this way, what are the results? This is like very liberating. And I mean, especially if we use the knowledge to actually, inform our actions and actually transform. Like, okay, I'm going to cultivate the mode of goodness. Obviously, it's clear just from the language. The mode of goodness is the best mode. Of course, there are some downfalls to staying in the mode of goodness, but it is the best mode to cultivate our spiritual life. And I thought I'd share with you, so excuse me for scrolling through my notes, but there's some results. Okay. So in the mode of goodness, we can cultivate knowledge. It's actually easier to enlighten your consciousness because you're not so busy with the mode of passion trying to get some result and make something happen, and you're not so like sleepy and ignoring that you're not even interested in like, spiritual like enlightenment. And so the mode of goodness, it's much easier. It's much easier to like contemplate life's big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Where did I come from? Where am I going? What is the purpose of my life? Asking these questions is like it's the best thing that we can do in a sense with our human life. We're in the human form. We're able to ask questions and discover why we're here, what we're doing. And so the mode of goodness it's important to understand it and to experience it and practice it and cultivate it more and more over time. It's a gradual process, but it will help us to cultivate knowledge, and not just like, oh, I know that, like, oh, here's a cool fact about spiritual life, but like, deeply realizing like, okay, I tried the mode of passion over and over again. It never worked. In fact, I feel burnt and I hurt people, or, the mode of ignorance is just like killing me. Like, I can't thrive, and like really deeply realizing like, okay, this is what I want to do with my life, and I'm committed to it, even if it's, bitter at first, or even if cultivating the mode of goodness, it's humbling, or, there's sacrifice and there's austerity with it. And, it's not just like, just hanging out and laying around and feeling good, but so when I'm talking about cultivating knowledge, I mean really like realizing it deeply. And the result, and so back to what I was saying, the results of passion. Okay, so I'll just read this. This is text 12 in chapter 14. O chief of the Bharatas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, uncontrollable desire, hankering, and intense endeavor develop. So that's pretty clear to me. And that's painful when I go there, and I do. And I have some examples for you later, or soon maybe. And then text 13 describes the results of living in the mode of ignorance. And it reads like this: O son of Kuru, when there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, madness, illusion, inertia, and darkness are manifested. So that's definitely my least favorite mode. But there's times where I feel irritated by the mode of goodness. And so let's talk about that for a minute, because the mode of goodness is a place where you can become conditioned to just stay happy, feel good, stay happy. And even though I said earlier, the mode of goodness is the best place for cultivating knowledge, for realizing who we are, for, cultivating our spiritual life, and it is, that doesn't mean people in the mode of goodness necessarily go there and start asking those questions and cultivating like their eternal bliss as an individual soul. They might not be doing that. And so the mode of goodness, people can live in the mode of goodness and be atheists, and or not have any spiritual contemplation, and it's still a better life, but it can just be comfortable. And staying in the mode of goodness, which is called sattva, we can like kind of actually waste time just doing good things, and like being out in nature and having nice communication and relationships. And what's the point really if we're not like attending to the soul? Like what, how did the soul get here? And where is it going? Like what, how did this happen? Where did we, come from? And so the mode of goodness actually can irritate me as well, because I think I have that a little bit of that tendency. I have all the modes in different ways, but there's another part of me that, prior to encountering these teachings and practicing bhakti yoga and Krishna consciousness, I was really into cultivating the mode of passion. I mean, that too, I guess I said that, but I just read passion when I looked down at my paper. But yeah, I was into the mode of goodness. Like my values system was like, yeah, recycle and like take care of Mother Earth. And those are good things. It's just that's not all to life, is being good and having kind, good, intentions. That's actually not all to life. So this is really great knowledge. We do need the mode of goodness. We really do need it. It's really hard, it's possible to transcend all of the modes without cultivating the mode of goodness. I suppose it's possible. It's not like it's absolutely impossible, but it's very unlikely. It's more likely that we will step into our true spiritual nature through, as a progressive, steady process. So this knowledge is very helpful, and it's just not everything. So so here we are, okay, so our, my stance and my experience is that we're not our bodies. We are spirit souls having a human experience. So we're eternal beings having a temporary human experience. And I don't know where I'm going, but I have this in my notes. So okay, excuse me for a moment. I'm feeling a little shy, like kind of like self-conscious. So I'm not sure where to go next. Anyway. So yeah, so I think I pretty much said that, but there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yovanam jara tatra dehantara praptir diras tata namuhyati. And this verse, it means in English, as the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. So I brought that up because, this is a bona fide scripture. This is the Bhagavad Gita, and this is like a scripture from God. I'm pretty sure of it because it's absolutely phenomenal, and it really impressed me when I read this book, the Bhagavad Gita. Like, oh, whoa, this feels like I'm encountering absolute truth. I was really, that's why I'm even speaking today, because I'm super into the book. Well, not that I'm reading it all the time, but it would be nice to keep studying it for sure. And I'm trying to, but it resonates with me, the philosophy, the practice, the imports, the results, like the whole thing of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and the whole book is there to support the spirit soul in any religion, in any path, to cultivate love of God, to cultivate, devotional service to the absolute truth, to the Supreme Lord. And this summary, this essential point is completely like kind of it like won my heart over. I'm like, yeah, that makes complete sense. And I'm very interested in like, what does it take to cultivate devotional, loving service to the absolute truth, to God, to Krishna, a name for God, Krishna. And so that's what this whole entire book is about. The Bhagavad Gita is how we can serve and love God, how to rearrange our whole life, how to cultivate sattvic habits, how to, I can't keep listing, but it's a really cool book, and that's the essence, is how to become an instrument of God, and like in a truly loving, devotional way, which to me is very touching, the idea of loving God like with all of my heart. And so that reminded me of one of the verses that I pulled out to share with you from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is Canto 1. Here, I'll just show you the book. This is Srimad Bhagavatam. It's pretty cover there, far out, transcendental cover. And so this is Canto 1, Chapter 2. And then I'm going to read a few of the verses starting from text 19. It says, at the time loving service is established in the heart, the modes of passion, rajas, and ignorance, tamas, and lust and desire, kama, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes happy. And the next verse says, thus established in the mode of goodness, the man rejuvenated by loving service to the Lord gains liberation from material association, mukti, and comes to know scientifically of the personality of Godhead. Thus the knots of the heart and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions, karma, is terminated when one sees the self as master. So I really like this. This especially text 19. So yeah, when you establish loving service to God, to Krishna, then these modes of passion, ignorance, and well, actually it says passion, ignorance, lust, and desire, rajas, tamas, and kama. Okay, they disappear from the heart. But I would venture to say that, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong later, but you can also have the mode of goodness disappear from the heart and have a purely spiritualized consciousness, activities, way of being in the world. And so the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes happy. So, and also, well, there's two things I want to say now. I'm remembering, I'm kind of getting excited. So one thing I want to speak to that about is, okay, this sentence about the, thus the knots of the heart and all misgivings are cut to pieces. So, so the knot in the heart. Okay, so one way that we can imagine the knot in the heart is actually like all the three modes of material nature as ropes, all tangled. And that's the reality. We are like all tangled up with all different kinds of ways of being, passion, ignorance, and goodness mixed and entangled. And when there is a okay, something is clicking with me. Okay, so there's kind of two ways to deal with this knot in the heart. And not two ways, but let's just say there's two really good ways and one is even better. So usually, like when you have a knot, you have to kind of identify which strings to pull to untangle untangled knot of ropes or string or thread. You have to be careful and conscious of which ones to pull to untangle. And in our life, when we pull on the, let's just say we're talking back about the modes of material nature, when we pull on the sattva rope, the mode of goodness, this is like the easiest way to untangle. This is quite an easy way to untangle the rope, the knot in the heart. Okay, we can start to untangle it by continuing to cultivate and activate like that activity of pulling on the sattvic rope to engage with the sattva mode of goodness. And this can untangle the knot in the heart. But there's also a method to completely slash the whole entire knot to pieces. And it's a faster way. And it actually needs to eventually happen. And what that is it's the fourth mode, of not material nature, but there's a mode of being, a mode of consciousness called Shuddha Sattva. Sattva is mode of goodness. Shuddha means pure, so it's like it's pure goodness, and that activity is bhakti yoga. So it's serving God with love and devotion, and you don't have to be pure-hearted to begin the process of bhakti yoga. You can just get started with it and fumble with it and try to love and try to serve God and follow his recommendations, which he gives in different scriptures, and also follow the Lord's representatives, which he sends to teach humanity how to return to our true nature as loving servants of God. And so we can begin bhakti yoga at any point. You can be in any mode, in any life area. You can be in the mode of ignorance, and you can just shoot all the way up to bhakti yoga. You don't have to go through passion and goodness and then get to pure goodness. You can just be like, oh, I've had it with any of the modes, and just begin to engage in devotional service to God. And this is a faster way to transcend all of the modes of nature. And this is also being who you really are. It's actually just stepping into your actual nature by serving and loving God. Even if you don't feel it yet emotionally, you can go through the actions and practice it. And, over time, you will begin to feel devotional loving feelings. So I find that really exciting. Okay, on this note, I'm going to share a few more verses from the, well, not that this is a lot, I don't know if I have anything else to say. I think I have a few more things, but and on that note, I want to share with you some more verses from chapter 14, which I found really enlightening, because most of the chapters like describing the material modes, but then there's this set of verses 22 through 25 that describes what it's like when you're, transcending the modes. And then verse 26, is the final, the pure goodness, the bhakti yoga. It's a bhakti yoga verse. So, this is verses 22 through 25. The Blessed Lord said, "He who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, nor longs for them when they disappear, who is seated like one unconcerned, being situated beyond these material reactions of the modes of nature, who remains firm, knowing that the modes alone are active, who regards alike pleasure and pain, who looks on a clod, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is wise and holds praise and blame to be the same, who is unchanged in honor and dishonor, who treats friends and foe alike, who has abandoned all fruitive undertakings. Such a man is said to have transcended the modes of nature." That's amazing. That would be great. That would be great. And so verse 26 is exciting to me. Also, it says, so one who engages in full devotional service, and the Sanskrit does say bhakti yoga in it, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So naturally, by practicing bhakti yoga, to begin to serve and love God and to follow instructions and to do some of the austerities and to let go of the lower habits, even the mode of goodness, to just sort of rise above all of that and just begin your service to Krishna. Okay, I don't know what I was going to say because I got a little distracted for some reason, but okay, it says at once you can transcend the modes of material nature. So I think I'm getting from that this is like a faster route. This is like the elevator route, and the other way is slow, but eventually you do get to practice Krishna consciousness by cultivating the mode of goodness. Like if you do cultivate everything in those verses 22 through 25, you will eventually become so good and have such an open heart and be so loving as a person and be ready to receive, you can, and I believe that the soul will eventually come in contact with, the concept of devotional service and find a spiritual master because of their sincerity to let go of everything in this material world. But I don't really know. I guess some people can just fall back down and cultivate the passion and ignorance again. But definitely that is a way to go in spiritual life. There's a in the purport to verse 26 about bhakti yoga and at once transcending the modes, Prabhupada says, bhakti yoga means that the Lord is there, the devotee is there, and the activity of exchange of love between the Lord and the devotee is there. Therefore, the individuality of two persons is present in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the individual person. Otherwise, there is no meaning to bhakti yoga. If one is not situated in the same transcendental position with the Lord, I need some water, excuse me. If one is not situated in the same transcendental position with the Lord, one cannot serve the Supreme Lord. To be a personal assistant to a king, one must acquire the qualifications. Thus, the qualifications is to become Brahman, or freed from all material contamination. So, yeah, we do need to be free of the material contamination in order to associate with the Lord, and at the same time, it kind of can go hand in hand. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I only do bhakti yoga, but I don't free myself from all of my lower habits, or, well, that doesn't really make sense actually. But they can go hand in hand, cultivating the mode of goodness, letting go of passion and ignorance, gradually, and then weaving in bhakti yoga. This is like I think this is a natural process, and they go together. I thought to share some examples of the modes of nature, although I can't believe it's already 7:18, so maybe I think this is a little bit fun, so I'll try to, I have other notes, but I think that I said a lot, and I'm going to share something that's a little bit fun. Examples, okay? And this is what came to me. I was like walking and chanting on my beads, and I was thinking, well, what could be some like interesting examples? And so what came to mind is my relationships in my family. The way that I'll just share with you some examples of my consciousness in relationships. And I think they can illustrate some of the modes of material nature. So, okay. Now I'll start with my husband. With my husband, sometimes I'm in the mode of passion, and I'm noticing what should change, and I'm thinking he should, I'm thinking, oh, he should notice this, and he should act like this, and I'm kind of like have this attachment, and I have this desire and this longing that he should, realize something, and I definitely experience myself in the mode of passion. Or if he does something that's not very conscious with the children, the way that I would handle it, I'm like, oh, I'm quick to like, have this like passionate energy, like, no, like it should be different. And I have, frustration and anger. That's part of, hankering and anger and attachment. These are the feelings I have in my relationship with my husband. And not all the time, but it's often. I'm like, oh, and then with my children, it's slightly more sattvic. It's like, oh, I hear it, you're feeling this feeling, and I see how you did it that way. Like I have like, oh, this boundary in my mind that I don't, if I do mode of passion or ignorance with them, like, oh, so important, the service, raising children, like, I need to get back up to the mode of goodness. And so generally that's really important to me. So I'm really focused with them on the mode of goodness. At least I'm trying, certainly I go into other modes of passion and ignorance with them, but I don't put a lot of pressure on them. They should have this realization, or, I don't have a lot of like attachment and anger and hankering and desiring like I do with my husband. But with my kids is a little more sattvic. And then, I thought, oh, well, maybe with myself, I'm a little bit more tamasic. I'm like, oh, who cares about my health? I'll just have like another snack, or like, I'll avoid my life purpose, or I'll avoid my spiritual practice. Like I can just be in the mode of ignorance with myself. Generally, I don't even know if it's generally speaking, but this is for somehow, I don't know, somehow I realize like there's kind of a little illustration there in how I approach relationships with my primary family. Like, oh, passion, ignorance, passion, goodness, ignorance. And I don't know if that really illustrates, that's not that an amazing of an illustration. I could keep going on and on about examples of what happens, but anyway. And then sometimes I transcend all the modes of material nature in the family. And I'm like, let's do kirtan, or like, oh, offer the prasadam, or like, let's gather flowers. Like, I can tend to be the person who, let's do this, let's do that. Like I can bring in devotional service and bhakti yoga. Not that my husband doesn't. He does, just in a more like steady way and like a quiet way, just by being. But sometimes we all get on board and get really into it. Like we're decorating, our altar. And so there's a mix there. There's a mix there in this home and in my consciousness, for sure. Those are my examples of some of the modes of material nature. And I think I'll stop there. I think I'll stop there. Thank you so much for listening and being with me. Hare Krishna. And so the text reads, I'll read it one more time. Sometimes the mode of passion becomes prominent, defeating the mode of goodness. O son of Bharata. And sometimes the mode of passion defeats. Sorry, I know that I'm saying passion a lot instead of goodness. What does that mean? Okay, and sometimes the mode of goodness defeats passion, and at other times the mode of ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy. Hare Krishna. I'd love to hear from anyone, thoughts and feelings, realizations, contribute to the discussion in any way. Please share. Hi, Jim. You want to share? You're muted.
Yeah, I can't think of anything to share. I mean, I appreciated. Yeah, how, I thought it was a nice insight about how you, you know, how you use the different modes when you're in relation with your husband and your kids and yourself. I can relate to that, and sometimes I like. That's why I like I'll call somebody or go hang out with somebody just to help myself kind of get motivated and get out of being in the mode of the tamasic mode. And yeah, it's like I notice I definitely need more relationship to help me get into better modes.
Thank you for sharing. You do know how to lift yourself out of the mode of ignorance when you're there, and association with people who uplift you really works for you, and you want more of it.
Yes. And even if they're, I don't know, even if I'm associated with people that aren't uplifting, I just think in my mind, how can I help? How can I serve? I mean, I have, the Gita, I've heard, the Gita, or maybe it's Prabhupada talk about people, on your level, you become friends with people below you, and then people above you. And I forget what the saying is, but, so even when I'm with, because sometimes I question, I'm like, when I'm hanging out with people I think that are below me or whatever. I mean, sometimes you don't know, and it's not even worth thinking too much about it. I'm like, oh, should I be with somebody? Should I try to be with someone who's more uplifting? And but when I'm still like, but I still, but I quiet that down and be like, you can still serve, and you can still, share knowledge and give and help, and help, be uplifting. And that motivates me.
I really appreciate what you shared about like I'll go be with anyone instead of like in my room and escaping or whatever. Not you, but like I imagine you're saying like, let me just go serve, or let me go be uplifted. Either way, let me interact with humanity and learn or create service or give and receive.
And not let them bring me down, of course. And I tend to make friends with my neighbors. I mean, I'm living in the country now, but I still have friends in Gainesville that were my neighbors. I don't, because I'm kind of a homebody, and I'll be hanging on the porch, and I still have friends that are neighbors still, and I still talk to them, and so that's like one, that's one example. But I appreciate what you're saying too. Yeah. I'm thinking about, like, I'm visioning you on Harinam, enjoying to meet everyone. Yeah, I see you like to meet everyone when you're doing Harinam, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's I think it's natural, and I think it's good to be friendly, like you're saying, like, you think you're I think you're naturally friendly, and you enjoy being friendly and serving and connecting with people. So you keep your you keep your relationships, and you create new ones and wherever you go. So I appreciate that. And when you were saying about association, it's not that people are low. I don't think it's that people are lower than us or higher, but more like who has experience in devotional service or in serving God. And so some people just have less experience serving God, and some people have more experience serving God, and some people are sort of on our peer level. And I think that's the distinction, and it's just a matter of experience, not so much higher or lower. Some people have more or less experience with devotional service, and that's
a good point.
But you brought it up, and I think that I appreciate what you're saying about uplifting people or being uplifted or serving together with your peers. That's nice.
Yeah, but even the way you say it though make it sound. It's. I think that's sounds better, and it was more true as far as not saying higher or lower. It's more more experience. That's what I was appreciating. Yeah.
Thank you. Nice to connect with you. Looks like the sun is still out. It's been overcast here all day, but you have sun on you.
Anyway. Get bad internet. I get bad internet now that I'm living like out in the country. So and I'm still using my phone. I haven't got internet from. So I'm in Alachua now, using the internet.
I'm really glad you joined the class.
Thank you.
I appreciate your association. Hare Krishna, would anyone else like to share? I'd be happy to hear from you. And if not, we can end the class early. No problem.
If no one have a question, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
ready.
Thank you, Damayanti. I really appreciate your presentation of the 3 modes and, the detail you gave, experience and knowledge and examples you gave. And then, seems that some of the emphasis in your class was that to develop the mode of goodness. And, in a Veda, a lot of emphasis is there to develop the mode of goodness. And also it's over many lifetimes, the evolution from one mode to the other and one ashram, one varna to the next is over many lifetimes. And I'm wondering okay, Skali Yoga, we are all Westerners, and, the chance of us developing goodness is quite very low. Very low in one lifetime, a lifetime. Srila Prabhupada said our lifetime is kind of reducing all the time. So let's say, okay, we come to Krishna consciousness, some of us lucky, in their 20s, some of us come in their 30s, some of them come in the 40s, some of them come in the 50s. But anyway, we don't have many years. We just have a glimpse that it goes like that. And it could be very discouraging to try in those few years to change ourselves, to change our subtle body so much so that all of a sudden, I'm acting in a mode of goodness in every situation all the time. So I was just wanted to challenge you with that, question, comment. What do you have to say about that?
I say, forget about the mode of goodness and just engage in bhakti yoga 24/7 and associate with devotees who, with devotees and people, or, associate with anyone that's less experienced that wants to learn from you, and people ahead on the path, and just focus on bhakti yoga and forget about the mode of goodness. That's my response.
I like your response. Ladin is laughing too.
Very much.
She said, I like your response very much. Me too. Yeah, forget about the mode of goodness. Who cares about the mode of goodness?
Yeah.
But at the same time, of course, we want to do our best. And without going into discouragement, because from wherever we are at, we can serve Krishna. From wherever we are at, we can chant Hare Krishna. From wherever we are at, we can make advancement in Bhakti Yoga. And at the same time, you're correct. We want to develop the mode of goodness, and who cares about the mode of goodness? Because Bhakti Yoga is transcendental to all the modes. So Bhakti Yoga cannot be depending on any material modes. Jai, she says.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it includes goodness, right? I don't know.
Material mode needs include goodness, and Bhakti Yoga is free.
Okay.
Like we are going to read that from the Nectar of Devotion soon in details. Bhakti is free. And if it's free, that means it doesn't depend on any of the three modes of material nature, because those ropes are material. And so we want to cultivate goodness, and we don't want to depend on it, because Bhakti doesn't depend on anything material. So we can. That's the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, she says. Ladini is in another room and she's listening. Yes.
Hi. Thank you. Yeah, I just I had this realization a few weeks ago, or maybe months ago, maybe weeks. Anyway, forget about trying to perfect my marriage or my relationship with my husband. And he agreed on this point, who cares about trying to have like amazing communication between us, or whether we acted in a way that was who cares about the conflict? Let's just switch gears and focus on Bhakti Yoga. Forget it. I don't want to spend the rest of my decades trying to get better at marriage. That's really not, I mean, I do, and you know what I mean? It's good to do it, and
it's not the goal of your life.
Yeah, and it's not the goal of Gaetano's life either. And I think we're on the same page. Let's just switch to service. What can we do to serve Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, and just forget it. Of course we're going to have those conflicts, and we're both committed to serving Prabhupada. So it really doesn't matter to clear up every conflict. Let's just switch back to the thing that we really cared about and the whole goal. And I'm not always doing that, but at least I had the realization, and this reminded me of that, and it gives me a sense of peace. Yeah, I can just do Bhakti Yoga instead of all of that, instead of all those goodness things. And it's fun. It's more fun too. I really do experience Bhakti Yoga as fun, the association, and especially the outreach part is fun for me, inviting others to think about serving God and inviting them to connect with Krishna. And so I find that really fun. That's all. Yes, Ladini Shakti, you're muted.
Hare Krishna, Damayanti, thank you for your class. And you're sharing about, I already heard that about you and Garuda, who cares about sattvic communication in marriage? Let's focus on Krishna, I really like that. And it reminds me of a story of Mother Jana. I think she shared with me, and it's a few years ago, that her husband, after 40 years of marriage, he asked Mother Janava, "Do you love me?" And she was like, "Oh, I never thought about it." So that really highlighted for me principle there.
Yeah, I'm not there. I'm more you remember that that you like me, right? Or something, I don't know. I'm wanting my husband, because he can tend to be in a bad, it doesn't even matter. He can be in a not focused on me and praising me, but I'm wanting praise. That's all I have to say.
My husband has to praise me all the time, otherwise I'm angry with him.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Dr. Devin, hello.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm glad that you're talking about the modes tonight. We had the I'm participating in the transformative coaching program right now, and yesterday was the beginning of part 2, and that first class of part 2 is about the 3 modes. So I was already thinking and have consciousness around the 3 modes and the gunas. And from what I heard yesterday, and you might have mentioned this and I missed it, but sattva is represented by fire, and tamas by wood, I think.
Water, maybe?
And
I
no.
haven't heard of this, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I wanted to share this and then tell you what I was thinking.
Okay, sorry.
And so Rajas by smoke, tamas by wood, and sattva by fire. And I was like surprised. Maybe I've heard that before, but when I heard that yesterday, I was surprised because like I was thinking sattva was, one definition is like, well, in my mind anyway, was like to be undisturbed, like to be equanimable or whatever that word is, and to be like it's the best platform for transcendence of the modes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's the best platform. Like I like your conversation about, let's not make our goal to cultivate sattva, because in the example of the airport, it's like, oh, I go to the airport because that's how I'm going to fly to the West Coast or somewhere else in the world, and that's where I need to go. But then if I get comfortable in the airport, right? So yeah, and so I like this conversation, how it's going, and then okay, yeah, but I've just been sitting with like sattva is fire. Like, how is that? What does that mean? How is it fire? And like what's come up for me is, well, fire is like motivation. It's like an impetus for action. Light a fire under someone's, like that. And fire also throws off sparks. And so those sparks can ignite other fires. So sattva, and in terms of like being a life coach, a sattva tov trained life coach, it's like, it's so much about presence and my well-being, like mentally, like my consciousness, I'm trying to say, sorry, my consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to have like, to be potent, powerful, present, then I'm wanting to, like be like a fire that gives association. That's it. Like fire provides light and it sheds off sparks that can ignite other fires. So I want to be the one giving, and there's warmth. Concha is here. She says warmth. So like, in of course a wedgie, warmth, empathic, genuine way. So so like that's what I've been sitting with and kind of just wanted to share.
Thank you. You're already meditating on the modes of material nature, and you heard a metaphor from, where did you hear it from? The metaphor with the fire?
Oh, about wood, smoke, and fire?
Yeah. Where did you hear it?
Yeah. That is, Virgavinda shared that yesterday as part of the coach training course.
Okay, thank you.
It's an analogy from Srila Prabhupada's purport in the Bhagavad Gita.
Mm-hmm.
And the analogy is like, it's about purity. So you have the pure fire and the fire can be covered by smoke. And then you have the wood represent inertia, and like that, the fire coming out. It's an analogy. It's a verse, yeah. Do you remember which one? Yeah, it's in the Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 3, she says.
So thank you for sharing where it's from. And
it's an analogy.
it's an analogy from Prabhupada.
It doesn't mean like the elements or that goodness is represented by fire. It's just an analogy, the three of them, analogy to help us understand how they interact with each other. Yes.
Yeah, I haven't contemplated that much, but if anyone else would like to share about that. But I think the point is that I'm getting from you, and what I'm excited about is your enthusiasm and curiosity, and you're excited to know, and you like chewing on this metaphor, and embellishing it and expanding it. First, this is in the chat I see it's chapter 3, verse 38 from the Bhagavad Gita, which I'm not going to go flying up my page casually.
Thanks for sharing that. I guess Ladini translated Bhagavad Gita to Czech. Jai was awesome. So she was like, she knew that. But
Right.
I had to look up a definition. I had to look up definitions for inertia, because I really wasn't sure that I knew what that word meant. And so I'll share what I kind of understand now about wood, tamas, and inertia as like relative to the analogy, is that tamas, it's like inertia is like energy that doesn't want to change. It's sort of like stuck, and it opposes other like energy that tries to change it. So yeah, I was also chewing on that. I don't know what else to say about it, but I was just clarifying my understanding of what inertia is.
Yeah, stuck.
And in your class, you sort of talked about that. You sort of talked about like the push and pull and the balance. And I mean, you could also throw in like the word magnetic, how the modes like affect each other, because our consciousness, like you mentioned it toward the beginning, is like a balance of the modes.
Thank you, Devin. Yeah, I'm going to go read that verse after the class to see about the fire being covered by smoke and how that's a mode of passion. I don't grasp it, so I don't have a lot to say, but Mother Mona, you unmuted? Yeah.
I just wanted to say that the verse is a little different, and the verse speak about, like our consciousness, because what we are speaking about is consciousness. The soul is conscious and is consciousness, and the three modes of material nature covers that consciousness. Sometimes we say like you have the light of the soul, that's like a white light, and then maybe you have different filters, color filters that makes that the light is not white anymore. The light may be red or pink or so similarly, the mode of material nature kind of cover our consciousness, and our consciousness is filtered by those modes and is not pure anymore, pure light. So that's what the verse 338 is about. The analogy with the fires that Bhakta Devan is speaking about, I don't remember where it is. Maybe it's in the purport of that verse, but it's an analogy that Srila Prabhupada used also.
Yeah, it's in the verse and the purport.
Yeah.
It doesn't say exactly that, but yeah, it is.
Yeah,
I
it
see.
doesn't
I
say
see the
exactly.
purport talking about
Yeah.
fire and smoke. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's really, and that's why our consciousness is covered and is always uncovered too at the same time.
It's still
Our
accessible.
consciousness, yeah, is covered and it's not covered because the soul cannot be covered. So we have an opportunity to jump out of the three mode, whatever, of this body, you know, like we are not going to change our eyes. We are not going to change so many things we are not going to change. So in a sense also, the mix of those three modes of matter and nature, some part we can, and it's our responsibility to endeavor. Our responsibility to endeavor doesn't mean we are going to succeed. And if we like attach to succeed, then that's again the passion create that. So I'm attached to being a mother of goodness. That's passion, and then that becomes a stumbling block in our path towards devotional service. That attachment for unlike like the verse you read, I think it's 1929, about one who is not, you know, attached to illumination. So illumination is, you know, like, yeah, not being attached to be illuminated, not be attached to being a mother of goodness. Yes.
Mhm. And not hating if you're an illusion.
And not hating you. Exactly.
I think that verse is it's in chapter 14, 22 through 25. I think that's just a fascinating concept, you know, like just, you know, you could don't hate if you're an illusion and don't hanker for illumination. You know, it's like, wow, because I really do have an attachment to goodness. I do. And then I get like that hankering and frustration, you know.
And frustration and discouragement. You know, and that discouragement is a stumbling block towards devotional service. It's like, okay, that's what I have. I have that color of hair, I have those eyes, that nose, and I have this combination of the three modes of matter and nature. Still, I can offer all that to Krishna, while also being conscious to develop the mode of goodness without attachment. Yeah, and you know, like you were speaking about something in your class about the importance of this chapter, and at the beginning of the chapter, in I think it's the first or second purport, Srila Prabhupada said it's the most important chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, it's in the purport?
Either verse 1 or verse 2. The most important chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And one would wonder, why is it the most important chapter of the Bhagavad Gita? I speak about the three modes. It's because it's meeting us where we are at. And, you know, it's like we have all the higher state of consciousness and expansion. And in the Bhagavad Gita, you know, chapter, I don't know, like which chapter 9, chapter 10, also this middle chapter, and still the most important chapter is chapter 14 about the three modes of matter and nature. It's not the most intimate or the most transcendental, or, you know, it's the most important. Yes.
That's where
like,
we're at.
You have a hand raised by Patrick Mangum.
Parampara Prabhu. Yes.
Hi, Krishna. Patrick Mangum. Yeah, that's me. I'm Patrick Mangum here. And well, yeah, I had some inspiration to come on and talk about three gunas talk, but then you said forget about sattva, so forget about all that stuff. So I was like, oh well, now I have something else happening. Yeah, I noticed. What do you mean? It's sattva tov. We all came through sattva tov. You mean forget about goodness? So that's my attachment to sattva tov, and then yeah, I was thinking about. So yeah, well, I had that reaction of resistance of like, what is just forget about goodness, you'll just do devotional service. And I was like, well, what's that about? Because I have this thing, like the first thing that came to my mind is like, you know, like a devotee who's like really tamasic, but they're totally a devotee, you know, but like they like they wake up super early, they go to Mangal Arti, but they're just like falling asleep all the time because they're not getting enough sleep, and they can't even like sit in a class or listen. Like every time they sit still, they're just like falling asleep, or they're just like super passive and just like, like, and so I'm like that, because that came up to me is like, well, is that good to do devotional service like that? So that brought to mind of like, yeah, we can engage in devotional service according to the different modes. Like there's, we're practicing devotional service, but we may be doing it in rajas or tamas, and goodness, and or transcendence. Then there's actually transcendentally, we're doing devotional service and our consciousness is in transcendence. So yeah, that was just what I was noticing is like, well, what's better, and what is sattva that we're talking about? If it's like, what is goodness? Because I think a lot of the things, like, okay, well, reading spiritual literature and chanting mantras, like that is good. That is the mode of goodness, but it's also more like I guess that's like transcendence, includes the mode of goodness. So it's like, well, those are transcendental devotional activities, and there are good at the same time. So what is it, just goodness in and of itself? And then what is devotional service in and of itself? So those are some questions, that was just kind of sitting with, and yeah, and because it was interesting also that when Malini was like kind of the perspective I heard from Malini was like, well, to attain goodness, that could take, this lifetime, that could take a long time, like better just to go for devotional service. And I think of the opposite. My mind works the opposite, like devotional service, like I have no hope for that, but maybe I can attain some goodness. Like that's kind of where my mind goes. So perhaps it's a individualized process, and but it's so anyway, those was my musings. I'm glad to be with you, and Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Yeah, I think that you responded to some of your, like, it sounds like what you're experiencing is contradiction in the philosophy, or, in the discussion. And I'll clarify one point. When I said, forget the mode of goodness, where I'm coming from is like, okay, at the end of the day, with the short amount of time that we have left, cultivate bhakti yoga, which is transcendental to the mode of goodness. That's the best thing for the soul. So that was my response for like this idea of like, okay, at the end of the day, time is short and running out, and focus on bhakti yoga if you can. And at the same time, like Mother Malini said in the class, it is still at the same time, it is our responsibility. We do have time, and it is our responsibility to cultivate goodness, both. So they both go together. But if you have to pick one, pick bhakti yoga and forget about goodness. Like, forget it. It was a fun response. I think there's a place for it. And then I don't remember the last thing you shared. So if you want to bring it up again, parampara. It was several points, so I just responding to one.
Oh, well, if you want to, maybe I don't even remember my last point. Yeah, I didn't have a question necessarily. I just want to join in Wednesday.
Putting out, yeah.
The Wednesday Bhagavad Gita lounge, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
The last one that I understood Parampara was sharing is that I said, like, okay, there is very little hope for us to be in a mode of goodness, and let's not be attached to the mode of goodness while cultivating, as a responsibility. And then focusing on bhakti, and I was saying, like, was, the chance of really changing our psychophysical nature and the mix of the mode that is this subtle body and gross body is very slim, still with our responsibility. So we can, from wherever we are at, bhakti is independent, we can go to bhakti. And Parampara was sharing, like, he has his mind saying the opposite, like, okay, well, bhakti yoga is just so far away. Let me at least cultivate some goodness in this lifetime. So that's what I understood.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, because I had a thought about that, which is, well, one, Prabhupada is our spiritual master, and so he's telling us to cultivate bhakti yoga. And so, like Malini was saying, we have the responsibility to go ahead and follow the guidance of the representative of the Lord. And then, when you have that thought, it's useless and hopeless for me. That seems like a helpful attitude as far as cultivating humility on the path. Like bhakti yoga, for truth about where I'm at, let me be real. So I appreciate what you shared. That's a feeling that you can have and a thought to have, and that can be helpful for humility. But then as far as action, then do cultivate the bhakti yoga and don't just focus on goodness. That's my new stance for the day. And I'm on the edge of my, awareness of these things, but I'm just playing a role as facilitator. Ladini Shakti, do you want to share something?
Yes, I wanted to share something. Hare Krishna. Well, now I hear myself twice, but it's okay. Parampara said that he can hope, when we focus on bhakti, it's like a side effect that we develop mode of goodness. So I think this principle, let's not focus on mode of goodness and serve Krishna from wherever we are at. Then attaining the mode of sattva is probably relatively quick in compared to when we go through the varnashram dharma system without cultivating bhakti yoga. So then it takes lifetimes or thousands of lifetimes to progress. But then when Parampara Prabhu said that he thinks at least if I can get some goodness this lifetime, that would be pretty good. So I think my understanding of it, or what I got from it was I practice bhakti yoga, and then one of the effect of it is progressing automatically towards goodness. So that would be pretty good if I at least progress towards goodness. That's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for adding that. So Hare Krishna, everybody. We're at the end of the class. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you all. Thanks for being my friends. And
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mother Damayanti, for your enlivening class about the three modes of material nature. Jai. Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.